One man stood in the shadows for decades, pulling strings across an entire region while the world barely noticed his name. He commanded armies without ever wearing a general's uniform in public. He brokered deals that changed the fate of nations, from secret rooms in Damascus, Baghdad, and Beirut. Intelligence agencies from 3 continents spent billions trying to track his movements. When he finally emerged from the shadows, it was already too late. The chessboard had been set. The Middle East would never be the same. On a cold January morning in 2020, a convoy of vehicles left Baghdad International Airport. Inside one of them sat the man Western intelligence called the most dangerous operative in the Middle East. Minutes later, an American drone strike ended his life. But this isn't just a story about an assassination. This is the untold story of how a boy from a forgotten village in the Iranian mountains became the architect of a new world order, a military genius who reshaped the power structure of an entire region, and a man whose death sent shockwaves that are still reverberating today. The year is 1957. In a remote village called Qanat-e Malik, deep in Iran's Kerman province, a child is born. His family belongs to the Soleimani tribe, ethnic Lurs who have lived in these harsh mountain territories for generations. No electricity. Water comes from ancient underground channels that give the village its name. This is a world of absolute poverty, where survival itself is a daily struggle. The boy's father is a farmer, crushed under debt from government agricultural loans. Every harvest barely covers the interest. The family shares a single plate of food between brothers. There are no dreams of greatness here, only the grim mathematics of survival. The boy's name is Qasem Soleimani, and nothing in his early years suggests he will one day command the fate of millions. At 13 years old, Qasem makes a decision that will define the rest of his life. His father's debt has become an insurmountable burden. Under the Shah, unpaid government loans could mean prison. Young Qasem cannot bear the thought of his father behind bars for the crime of poverty. So he leaves school, says goodbye to his mother, and travels to Kerman city. For the first time in his life, he sees cars moving through streets, buildings taller than anything in his village. He has never tasted certain foods. He is utterly unprepared for the world beyond the mountains. But he has something far more valuable than preparation. He has determination, forged in the crucible of deprivation. Qasem finds work at a construction site where a school is being built. For months he labors under the scorching sun, mixing cement, carrying bricks, his young hands blistering and bleeding. Every rial he earns goes toward his father's debt. No new clothes, no extra food, just work, save, and work again. His relatives and friends share the burden of family obligation. Together they earn enough to pay off the debts. When Qasem finally returns to his village, he does so with his head held high. He has saved his father from prison. He has learned something crucial about himself. He is willing to sacrifice everything for those he loves. This capacity for self-sacrifice, born in poverty and tempered by hardship, will become his defining characteristic. But Qasem doesn't return to village life. In the mid-1970s, at around 18, he secures a position with the Kerman Water Organization, a stable government job that represents real upward mobility for a boy from the mountains. He works hard, he saves his money, and in his spare time, he discovers 2 passions. The first is physical fitness. He begins training in karate and bodybuilding, transforming his lean frame into something formidable. Fellow gym members remember a quiet, focused young man who pushes himself beyond normal limits. The second passion is more dangerous. He starts attending sermons of preachers aligned with the revolutionary movement, figures connected to Ayatollah Khomeini. These sermons speak of revolution, of overthrowing the Shah, of creating an Islamic republic. For Qasem, who has seen firsthand how the Shah's modernization programs crushed the rural poor under debt, the message resonates deeply. The seeds of revolution take root. In 1979, the Islamic Revolution sweeps across Iran like wildfire. The Shah, whose secret police terrorized dissidents, whose modernization left the countryside in debt, whose alliance with America symbolized Iran's subservience to the West, is overthrown. Ayatollah Khomeini returns from exile. The streets of Tehran erupt in celebration. And Qasem Soleimani, now 22 years old, joins the newly formed Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. His training is minimal, barely weeks. But he is assigned roles that demand quick adaptation. There is something about him, a natural authority, a quiet competence, that makes others want to follow him. His first deployment sends him to Mahabad, a Kurdish city in northwestern Iran, where he helps suppress separatist uprisings. It is brutal work, but Soleimani performs it without hesitation. The revolution must be protected. Then, on September 22, 1980, everything changes. Saddam Hussein's Iraq, backed by Western powers and Arab states, terrified of Iran's revolutionary fervor spreading, invades Iran. The Iran-Iraq War begins, a conflict that will last 8 years and claim close to 1 million lives. Soleimani, still in his early 20s, is given command of units from Kerman. He leads them to the front lines. What happens next defies all expectations. While other Revolutionary Guard commanders treat their men as expendable, launching human wave attacks that send thousands to their deaths, clearing minefields, Soleimani takes a different approach. He conducts reconnaissance missions deep behind enemy lines. He returns with resources to feed his unit. Before battles, he embraces each man individually, bidding them goodbye. When his units suffer heavy casualties, witnesses say he weeps. This is not the behavior of a typical revolutionary commander. Soleimani is building something more than military units. He is building loyalty, the kind of fanatical devotion that cannot be bought or commanded, only earned through shared sacrifice. His men would follow him anywhere. They trust him with their lives because they know he values their lives. During key operations in the war, Soleimani's tactical brilliance shines through. He leads his forces in retaking territory the Iraqis had occupied, using unconventional tactics, speed, and surprise to overcome superior firepower. His success catches the attention of senior commanders. The battles he fights become legendary. Each operation showcases his growing mastery of irregular warfare. He doesn't have the weapons or equipment of the Iraqi army, backed by American intelligence and foreign arms. What he has is creativity, ruthlessness when necessary, compassion when possible, and an almost supernatural ability to read the battlefield. But the war takes its toll. Soleimani is seriously wounded in combat. Close comrades fall. The loss devastates him. Years later, he will honor their memory in ways that keep their spirit alive. As the war drags on, Soleimani begins to question the strategy of his superiors. He sees lives wasted in pointless assaults. He sees commanders with no clear plan for victory. Despite being young and junior, he challenges his superiors, risking his career to speak truth to power. Remarkably, the Iranian military leadership recognizes that Soleimani possesses something rare, a combination of tactical genius and moral authority that makes him invaluable. By the time the war ends in 1988, after 8 years of brutal stalemate, Qasem Soleimani has emerged as one of Iran's most decorated war heroes. He is 31 years old, and he has already fought in more battles than most soldiers see in a lifetime. But while other war heroes retire to comfortable positions, Soleimani's work is just beginning. After the war, he is appointed IRGC commander in Kerman province. His new mission seems almost pedestrian compared to the grand battles against Iraq. Combat drug smuggling along Iran's border with Afghanistan. But Soleimani approaches this task with the same intensity he brought to conventional warfare. He leads operations deep into the border regions, dismantling smuggling networks, eliminating drug lords, turning the southeastern frontier into a fortress. It is during these years in the shadows that Soleimani develops the skills that will later make him famous. Covert operations, intelligence gathering, building networks of local allies, unconventional warfare. He is learning how to project power without deploying armies. In the late 1990s, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei makes a decision that will reshape the Middle East. He appoints Qasem Soleimani, now in his early 40s, commander of the Quds Force, the elite unit of the IRGC responsible for operations outside Iran's borders. The Quds Force is Iran's primary tool for extending its influence across the region. Its name comes from Quds, the Arabic and Persian word for Jerusalem, reflecting Iran's commitment to the Palestinian cause and its opposition to Israel. Under Soleimani, it becomes something far more ambitious. The vanguard of Iranian power projection across the entire Middle East. Soleimani's strategy is revolutionary in its scope. Instead of relying solely on conventional military force, which Iran cannot match against the United States or Israel, he builds something new. A network of proxy forces, local militias, political movements that share Iran's interests, that can be armed, trained and advised by Iranian operatives, but that fight under their own flags, in their own countries, for causes that resonate with local populations. It is asymmetric warfare on a grand strategic scale. In Lebanon, Soleimani deepens Iran's relationship with Hezbollah, transforming it into a formidable force. He supports Palestinian groups in constructing defensive networks. But Soleimani's greatest opportunity comes in 2003, when the United States invades Iraq and topples Saddam Hussein. Almost overnight, the Sunni-dominated dictatorship that fought Iran for 8 years is replaced by chaos. The Iraqi state collapses, sectarian violence explodes, and Iraq's Shia majority, long oppressed under Saddam, suddenly has a chance at power. Soleimani sees the opening and moves with lightning speed. He establishes networks with Iraqi Shia political leaders. He arms and trains militias. He coordinates resistance against occupying forces. According to American officials, under Soleimani's direction, Iran supplies insurgents with advanced roadside bombs, weapons that kill hundreds of American service members and maim thousands more. Soleimani is directly linked to more American military deaths than any other individual in the 21st century. But here is where Soleimani's genius becomes apparent. He is not simply attacking Americans. He is building political power. By the late 2000s, Soleimani has become the shadow ruler in parts of Iraq. He brokers ceasefires when sectarian violence threatens catastrophe. When the Iraqi government needs to negotiate with militias, Soleimani sits at the table. What truly sets Soleimani apart is his personal bravery. Unlike other spy masters who direct operations from secure locations, Soleimani is on the ground in combat zones, often without heavy protection. Militia commanders describe him as fearless. Photographs show him on the front lines, conferring with local commanders, seemingly unconcerned about assassination attempts or airstrikes. This personal presence is crucial to Soleimani's mystique. He is not asking others to take risks he himself won't take. Then comes the Arab Spring of 2011. In Syria, what begins as peaceful demonstrations against President Bashar al-Assad escalates into armed rebellion. Assad, a key Iranian ally and the linchpin of Iran's access to Lebanon and Hezbollah, faces the possibility of being overthrown. It would be a strategic catastrophe. Soleimani acts decisively. He travels to Damascus, meets with Syrian officials, coordinates the response. When suppression fails and Syria descends into full civil war, Soleimani commits Iran and Hezbollah to saving Assad. He deploys thousands of fighters from Lebanon, Iraq, Afghanistan, and beyond. He establishes training camps. He coordinates military offensives. One rebel commander tells journalists that Soleimani is effectively running key aspects of the defense. The Syrian army is plagued by defections. Assad's regime appears on the verge of collapse. Soleimani needs a game changer. He needs a major power with air superiority to shift the balance. He needs Russia. In 2015, Soleimani travels to Moscow despite UN sanctions. He meets with President Vladimir Putin and Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu. He unfurls maps, explains the military situation in stark terms. Assad is losing. Without intervention, the Syrian government will fall. But the war is not lost. Soleimani outlines a strategy. Russian air power combined with Iranian ground forces and allied militias can turn the tide. He frames the conflict as a threat to Russia too. ISIS could spread jihadists worldwide. Putin reportedly agrees to intervene. Russian aircraft begin striking targets in Syria. The intervention changes everything. With Russian air superiority covering Iranian-backed ground forces, the tide turns. Rebel strongholds fall. By 2017, Assad's regime is secure. Soleimani has accomplished what seemed impossible. He has saved Iran's most important ally and forged a new strategic partnership with Russia. His influence now spans from Tehran to Baghdad to Damascus to Beirut. He has created what Iran calls the axis of resistance. But Soleimani's greatest triumph comes against an enemy that terrifies the entire world, the Islamic State, ISIS. In 2014, ISIS explodes across Iraq and Syria with shocking speed. Mosul falls. The Iraqi army collapses. ISIS declares a caliphate. Western intelligence warns that ISIS could march on Baghdad. Into this chaos steps Qasem Soleimani. Within hours of Mosul's fall, he is in Baghdad. He meets with Iraqi commanders, Shia militia leaders, and Kurdish forces. He coordinates the defense, organizing lines that hold against ISIS attacks. While the American coalition debates, Soleimani is directing operations on the ground. He organizes the Popular Mobilization Forces, bringing militias under unified command. These forces become the spearhead of Iraq's counteroffensive. City by city, they push back ISIS, Tikrit, Fallujah, Mosul, all recaptured in brutal campaigns that Soleimani helps plan. Photographs emerge, showing him on the front lines. By 2017, the caliphate has collapsed. For many in Iraq and Syria, Soleimani is the man who saved them from ISIS. In Iran, he becomes a national hero. Polls show overwhelming favorability. He is Haj Qasem, a title of deep respect.
For the United States and Israel, Soleimani represents a terrifying adversary, an operational genius who has extended Iranian influence, armed militias threatening allies, and constrained American freedom of action. Throughout the 2010s, assassination plots are considered and rejected, fearing escalation. Soleimani knows the threat, but continues his work, traveling between capitals, coordinating the axis of resistance. Then, in late 2019, tensions escalate. Protests in Iraq target corruption and Iranian influence. A militia attack kills an American contractor. The US strikes back. Embassy protests follow. Intelligence reports warn of Soleimani planning more attacks. The decision is made. On January 3, 2020, Soleimani arrives at Baghdad airport. His convoy is struck by American missiles. He is killed at 62. The architect of Iranian regional strategy is gone. Shockwaves spread.
Iran declares mourning. Massive funerals draw millions, the largest since Khomeini's.
In Kerman, tragedy strikes with a deadly stampede. Soleimani is buried simply, as he requested, among war comrades. Iran's response? Missile strikes on US bases in Iraq. No fatalities, but injuries. The crisis de-escalates, but the landscape shifts. Iraq demands US withdrawal. Tensions peak. Years later, commemorations grow. In 2025 and 2026, massive events mark anniversaries across Iran and allied nations. Conferences, art, ceremonies in multiple countries. Soleimani's popularity endures, a symbol of resistance. Who was the real Qasem Soleimani? For supporters, a selfless warrior defending the oppressed, a humble strategist building alliances. For enemies, a terrorist mastermind responsible for deaths, exploiting divisions, enabling brutality. The truth lies in the complex middle. He was brilliant, building networks, balancing force and politics. He was ruthless, civilian deaths, American losses, crushed protests. What made him exceptional was unwavering commitment. From poverty to power, he sacrificed everything for his beliefs. His legacy unfolds. Militias shape events. Strategies persist. His successor maintains the networks, but lacks his vision. Israel and the US target Iranian influence. The question remains, did they kill a man or an idea? Soleimani is dead, but his shadow endures. A reminder that power in the 21st century belongs not to those with the largest armies, but to those with the most strategic vision and the will to execute it. This was the story of Qasem Soleimani, the boy from nowhere, who became the man who shook the Middle East.